All right, welcome to episode 10 of the Beginner to Master Azul series. Sorry, grabbing some water. We are at 444 ELO, and I'm recording on the same night as episode 9, so didn't make a list of some of the prominent ideas, but let's just jump into some games. Okay, nice. So we got a strong player who is ranked higher than us. In the last episode, we faced a number of 300 level opponents. So here we get a high 400, so this person's almost expert. And right away, I don't like the fact that they're committing to the far right column. So I would have just played those blue on row 3 or potentially on row 4. There's a lot of whites around. And we do want to defend this. And it's pretty nice to just grab 2 blue. Now the whites aren't like super interesting to them, but I guess they are. So this is a bit, I don't want to say it's too odd. I've been preaching that your top rows don't have to align with your bottom rows, so it's not odd in that regard, but this is going to lead to an interesting situation. So if I take the 2 white and then they take the 1 white, I can get 3 red for my row 5, but I won't be able to guarantee a row 2. So I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to take a red, just start working on row 5. I guess I could have maybe pivoted to the middle column. So I could have taken the 2 whites on row 4. And then played the reds on row 2 or on row 3 when they grouped up. So maybe suboptimal for me. Maybe row 4 would have been better. And I'm just going to keep hammering reds. And my thought here is that, like, I don't even want my opponent to get row 2 red in this round because we know they're going to want row 3 red and row 2 red. And we've talked about, especially in the last couple of episodes, how difficult these rightmost column builds are. So I don't even want them to get 2 reds. Now the question is, do I want to grab another red here? Do I want to grab the white? I could also grab the black and try to get them off of row 2 black. But I think I want the white. And they have a good play of just grabbing this yellow from the factory. See, I think if you grab the yellow from the factory, then you end up with 2 black in the center and 2 red in the center, and you guarantee yourself a row 2. But now my opponent is not guaranteed a row 2 because whatever they take here, I'll take the 2 reds if they end up in the center. So taking a yellow there was fine, but they miscalculated and now they don't guarantee themselves a row 2. So taking from the factory would have been correct there. So we'll grab our red. Presumably they will take the black from us. Oh, okay, so they opt for the yellow, which is fine. So now I have a choice between taking this blue from them and taking this black. And the thing that's going to be the deciding factor is the number of tiles that were in this round. So because there were 6 blue, I'm going to take this blue and hope that it's harder for them to get 2 blue than it is for me to get 3 black, because there were only 2 black. So I expect, kind of an abundance of black in this next round. The blue is also slightly better for my adjacency. Let's see what happens. So the opposite happens. There's an abundance of blue and very few black. This is like quite a brutal draw for us. But our opponent does us one favor, which is to let us get our white row filled. So they're choosing to defend red. I think maybe row 1 white would have been stronger there. And this round is going to be a mess. We might end up with quite a lot of negatives. The interesting thing is, if we take this red and our opponent takes the other red, then we can group all the yellows in the middle, and our opponent will struggle on their row 4. When we do this, it might be the case that we have to play row 2 black. Or we might give up on our row 2, but our opponent just made a play, actually, that... Interesting. So I could take the row 2 black and kind of force them to choose between row 2 and row 4, but I think I'm going to stick to the original plan. Let's grab the yellow. Now we're at such low points that these negatives don't matter much. Okay, let's grab the black on row 2, excuse me. And we're gonna take all of these yellows. So we're gonna be at 0 for sure. And I think our opponent is also gonna be at 0. So in round 2, negatives don't matter as much, depending on what the scores are, of course. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. So tough draw. Let's put these yellows in the middle. So our opponent's being really aggressive on defense in a round where offense might be slightly better for them. So there's 6 black, and I already have my row 2 black, so I really only need 1 more for the rest of the game. Oh, I'm sorry, I need row 1 also. So I only need 2 more black for the rest of the game. So my opponent's playing like really aggressive defense on red and black, and it might cost them quite a bit, actually. So I get these reds, and yeah, so now my opponent's just giving up row 2 for no real reason. So this is something I find among mid-level players quite often, which is like a tendency to be hyper defensive. Um, I think my opponent could have come away with, like, we're still basically tied. I'm up by 1. Um, but I think my opponent is really tunnel visioning on defense here when they've had good point scoring opportunities. They've basically completely ignored uh, their upper rows. And even though we're only up by 1 and we haven't finished our column yet, this is going to be pretty easy to finish. And we're going to be hopefully crushing it when it comes to adjacency. So some important tiles for us here are the 2 yellow because there's only 2 of them left. So we want to get them in this round for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and take those. I'm not too worried about my opponent's like second column opportunities here. So you'll notice that they could potentially get 4 white. And actually, I think I'm going to shut that down right now. So I'm going to take the white for row 1. So if they want to try for the second column, they're going to be having an incomplete row 4. And actually, yeah, I mean, it's just, if they want this second column, they need to get 2 yellow. There's only 2 left. So that means they're giving up 1 yellow. So it's just kind of a mess. And here, they could go for this column too, depending on what we choose to give them. So basically, I'm looking at, if I take 1 black, they can take the 3 blue, and then they'll also end up with the 3 white, and they can try to build this, which they might be able to do successfully. So we do need to think about this play a bit. I don't really see a way around. I guess the play would be to take this 1 blue, and then they have weird decisions around black and red. I don't love that. All right, let's think on this. So this is pretty tricky. Okay, let's just go for what we had planned here. So I expect my opponent to take the 3 blue on row 4. And then they're looking at 3 white on row 5. What I'm going to do is take this 1 yellow so that their row 1 decision is a little bit tougher. And I'm okay with leaving my reds incomplete this round. All right, so this like truly makes no sense now. So now they don't have a threat of completing a second column, which I mean, we'll see what the scores look like, but I think this is going to be pretty challenging for them. And one thing you'll notice right away is they only have this row 2 white. So we'll be looking to dump whites on them for sure. Plays a red. We don't particularly care. We only need one, so this isn't like defending much. Let's. I was going to say let's group these blues together, but I do want to keep whites available to me. But I think I can do it with this red, and I kind of force. Oh wow. Okay, our opponent takes row 3 blue, so that's good. I didn't see that. Nice play by them. Now, this blue is. It's not really that important, to be honest. Let's just take a black from the center. Actually, we want to take the 2 white from the center so they don't get grouped up. So our opponent takes the blue, and now we can do our usual plan here of when there's 4 colors left, we create the situation where there's 1 factory on our opponent's turn. So basically they'll end up with these 3 whites as negatives for -5. And we are sitting pretty here. So again, doing some like, interesting. So I think those reds are more valuable on row 2, but maybe they want to leave the yellow for row 2. We're not going to allow that. And they'll go row 5 yellow. I'm sorry, they'll go row 2 white with the 5. Yeah, they're just not going to score enough to keep up with us. The other option is to take a black and make them go row 1 yellow. But this is immaterial in reality. Oh shit, my opponent has full color blue. Oh my god, I didn't even notice it. So always pay attention when you're playing Azul. Did not notice my opponent has full color blue, so we will possibly lose. Did not factor that in at all. Yeah, so will the negatives cover it? Oh, we're going to escape by the skin of our teeth. Wow. Okay, so we did win, but lesson learned. Always pay attention to everything on the board. I had completely missed that full color blue, and all I had to do was take 1 blue tile to defend it when I had ample ability to end the game on my own terms. So this could have been much less close. So yeah, that was dicey. Glad we still managed to win. So we'll jump into another one. Full color especially is one that we get the same opponent. Okay, I think I'm fine with that. Maybe I should have just denied it for the sake of getting a variety of games. Okay, so our opponent chooses 3 white for row 5, which is fine. Um, let's just take one red for the first player, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, so they're predictably going for row 3 yellow. We're not going to stop that, so let's build the second column, of course. Going back to the full color thing, it's something that's like, it's so rare that it's easy to overlook. Okay, very much dislike this play for my opponent. They're going to be mismatched on their, well, okay, so this is actually interesting. The reason this works is because if I take 2 black, then they get the 2 white. And if I don't take if I take like a white, then they get the 2 black. So they're not necessarily going to be mismatched because they will have completed row 4 or row 5. So the question is, what do we want them to have? Do we want them to complete the blacks or the whites? And I think the answer is going to be that we want them to complete the whites. And the reasoning is, or part of the reasoning is, again, my opponent's going to get stuck with no row 2 in the opening round. So this has happened again. And then let's go for the I'm thinking about this black versus red decision. Black was slightly more populous in this round than red. But, and our opponent is competing for it. Okay, so let's do black. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for full color threats. I was very aware of second column threats in the last game, but knowing that this player potentially likes to go for full color, definitely need to keep that in mind. So choosing black was not great in retrospect. They're going to easily get it. And we don't need to try to defend it because it's going to be near impossible to defend. So what do we want to do? We want to hammer red, right? Because they need it for row 5. So I don't even want to necessarily start with like, sometimes you take one red and then, you're kind of guaranteed to finish it. But because I want just the most red tiles possible, I want to start with 2 red, and I will take these other 2 red, probably for row 2. And if I don't finish the row 5 red, that's fine. Okay, so they choose those reds. So now our row 2 red is gone, so let's grab the row 2 blue. Yeah, so just like the last game, this opponent is like hyper defensive. And let's punish that by grouping all of these blacks together. So the idea here is that we can't really get hurt that badly by either this black or this white grouping because we can play either of them on row 3. And we'll take some negatives, but not a ton. But now our opponent has to make an potentially awkward choice. Okay, so the blue play is interesting. So I should basically, I think, leave this up to them and just take the yellow um, to minimize the negatives I'll take. So whichever one they take, I'll take the opposite, and I'm happy either way because I either fill, I would play the blacks on row 3 to be clear. Okay, so we get the whites. So right away we can tell we should be careful for full color black. And our opponent has a slight lead. Once again, we have slightly better kind of board position. So there's only 5 blacks left, and we know our opponent is kind of threatening full color. So what do we want to do here? We're not too worried about picking up a red. Getting 2 red for row 2 could be nice. But yeah, let's just basically ensure that our opponent only gets this row 4 black. So we'll take the row 1 black, and then we will take one of these. So our opponent takes the other ones, and now we get a very comfortable situation of dumping these 3 blue in to hurt their row 3. And we have flexibility on our row 2, so we can play red or white. And here we're going to get to screw our opponent a little bit with making them overpay for both row 2 and row 1. And if they do this out of order, if they start with the whites, then we can play row 3 yellow. So they have to start with the yellows. Yep, and now they can get the whites. And the question is, what's better for us? And I think it's just throwing the red away. So we'll let them get the row 1. We don't need to defend this for, an additional -4 when they're going to get an additional -5 just for playing it. So you can see kind of the difference in styles between my opponent and I. They're playing defense by just taking tiles, and I'm playing defense by grouping tiles. And at this point, we have a 12-point lead and a completed column. So what we lacked in the beginning of the game, wow, is that really 3 white? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's only 1 white left, if I have that correct. So we want to try to get row 2 white if possible. I don't know that it will be possible, but so let's see what we want to do here. This is kind of tough. Let's go for row 3 blue. So there's a lot of blue, yellow, and red left, and not a lot of white and black left. There's even potentially the idea of like building this column on the right. I don't want to give my opponent 3 red for free. Okay, so let's go for the row 2 white that we talked about. And our opponent will have a chance to stop us from row 1, so they can take these 2 blues on row 1 to prevent us from getting it, but they don't have a great place to play them. Yeah, so they're going to go on row 5. And we don't want to play these black because there's only 3 of them left. But nothing here is particularly good for us. So presumably my opponent takes 3 yellow if I take the black. I guess there's still a chance they take 3 red. So let's throw away. Oh, I don't want to throw away the black. Oh yeah, that's fine. So we'll throw away the black, and we'll play whichever of these my opponent doesn't take. Yeah, so they go for the red. I don't know about that. So question of where to play these yellows. And I think it's on row 5. There is a world in which 4 red come out and we can play them on row 4. Okay, so this could get tricky. Our opponent's not really threatening any additional. There's no real additional threats here in terms of colors or columns. Building this right column would be a big task. I can just prevent that right away, I think, by taking 2 blues. And then, 1 blue for my row 1. So let's just go for that. There's a chance the game doesn't end this round. I think it's in my favor for it to end this round. Less of a chance for my opponent to get full color, less of a chance, they could get full color black, full color blue. So I want to try to end it this round, provided I can do so while winning. And let's group some yellows together because 2 yellows is good for us. And let's just put this blue situation to bed. So because my opponent played the row 3 yellow, they now have nowhere to play reds. So we will go for reds. Okay, so my opponent's basically preventing us from being able to end the game. So we'll take black. They'll take black. And now the nice thing is we're going to stick them with these reds. So do I want to play the yellows on row 4? Or do I want to play them on row 5? So we could potentially actually play the reds on. Okay, yeah, this is what we're going to do. So notice that our opponent isn't going to be able to play reds next round either, because they aren't going to finish either of these 2 rows. And we will be able to threaten full color red if I take these 4 red. So instead of dumping these negatives, these red negatives on my opponent, we're actually going to play them. And not only actually are we going to threaten full color red, but we'll be able to threaten this left column. So we're heading into round 6, looking quite strong. and my opponent's threats are all diminished other than a second column. So they can't get full color blue, they can't get full color black. In theory, they can get full color white, but it's not going to happen. Okay, so they take black. We, of course, are heavily incentivized to end the game, so we will do that. There's very little that my opponent can do. They will be able to finish this right column, so they will get extra points there. Okay, so they're closing off full color red from us, but what can we do in response? We can group all of these blues up. And put 4 colors in the center. So they will be taking these 5 blues at the end of the game. And in fact, they will be taking 7 blues. So the trick is we do have to take this yellow here. And we should play it on row 4. If we play it on row 3, then we have no opportunity to play the reds. So our opponent can take the white and then we can't play the reds. So we want to play it on row 4. So now we can play the reds. And you might be asking yourself, like, why am I not doing this math, worried about this second column? Are they going to win? And the answer is I'm up by 6, and I know that they're going to be going minus 14. So there's no, and actually, it's better for me to do this, right? So I go +1, -3. My opponent still goes -5 from these reds, but they don't get the 12-point play of the column. So we're going to win by a hefty margin here. So when I'm in a slump on my main account, often I find that it is due to playing too defensively and just constantly grabbing tiles that my opponent wants or needs. And learning to play defense in different ways has really kind of helped me avoid that. I think this game naturally makes you want to just take the tiles your opponent needs, and you think like, oh, this is great, I'm preventing them from doing anything. But there's always an opportunity cost when you don't develop your own board. So this opponent that we've played twice in a row now was pretty consistently grabbing tiles from us, and like in this last game they played tiles on row 4 in round 1 that wasn't aligned with their row 5, and you could see like by their boards at the end of the game were very disjointed and kind of all over the place, and they passed up on scoring in their top rows to try to threaten second columns or a full color. And like we talked about all the way back in episode 1 with investments, investing in the bottom rows just generally doesn't work out beyond, of course, getting your one column in place. Okay, so a new game, a 498, um, and let us start with these 3 blue on row 5. Um, a very common choice for us, and I'm not worried about the fact that there's only 1 black. Um, we'll get them in future rounds. So um, this is an interesting choice actually between completing row 5 or working on row 3 and preventing my opponent from getting their row 3. Um, and I think I like the fact that I already have 3 blue, so I'm feeling good about my progress there. Um, so I'll make the play to prevent my opponent from finishing row 3 while securing it myself. Okay, so they give me the choice, and I already explained that I will make this choice. So, speaking of investing in your other rows, um, or your bottom rows, so this is an interesting one because they can basically pivot to the rightmost column. Um, so let's we can't take red here for row 5. I should mention before I even make this play. So we can't take red for row 5 because if they take black, then we only have 1 play left. So let's take blue for row 2. So we'll hurt this row 5 blue a bit. And let's take blue for row 1. So we'll really hammer that row 5 blue, and then we're happy with either black or red. And this has been, I feel like the past couple of episodes, we're running into so many situations of our opponent building on the edge. And I think it kind of remains to be seen with this opponent where they're going to end up building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it looks like, I don't know if this is a move to remain flexible. I mean, obviously it's defensive, preventing my row 4. So I'm still a little bit unsure. Like, are they going for column 2 or column 4? They've got options, and my decision is between this 3 blue and the 2 red, and it's almost like whichever one I take, they're going to take the other one. So, do I have a preference as to which one they go for? I think I'd potentially prefer for them to go for blue, because it's going to be more challenging to build left. So let's try to force them into the blue. And if they don't take the blue, then obviously we'll take it for row 3. It's great for us. But let's see if we can force them into this rightmost column. Okay, so yeah, this will be interesting. They're going to be left with basically nothing on row 5. They might get 1 red or 1 blue, kind of depending on what they pick here. Okay, so here we are going to take 1 yellow for row 1, and it has the added benefit of there being 2 yellow in the middle, and then there will be 3 white in the middle. So we'll be able to pick either for our row 2 adjacency. And we probably won't get 2 black. I assume my opponent will take the 2 black. And they do. Nope, they don't. Now that is odd. Because now they're going to have to take these 3 white to complete their row 2, which isn't very good. So I don't understand what the goal was there. I think 2 black on row 2 was totally fine. And I would take the yellow or the white, and then they could take the yellow or the white and be okay. So I'm not sure what my opponent was getting at. And again, we said we wanted to force them into blue, so let's take the red. And we'll see if they play this on row 5. Things are still very much up in the air for my opponent. Kind of taking an approach of building no column, maybe, or leaving it up to flexibility. But we already have a 10-point lead. Okay. And I expect my opponent will try to defend black again. Okay, on row 3. So let's grab the first player token, and we have good flexibility in this round. We can build white or red row 2. We have a decent shot maybe at row 3 yellow. But I want control of the start of the next round to hopefully finish out the black tiles. Okay. How do we want to play this? I still want my opponent to go for row 5 blue. Although at this point there's fewer reds left. But let's see if we can get them to do it. Another reason for playing the white over the red is that there's no good spot for if I don't take those white, there's no good spot for them. Like I don't really want row 5 white, but there is a world in which I take like work on row 3 red. So that would be in my favor. And now let's put these 3 yellow together. And this is an awkward thing for my opponent to defend. They'd basically have to play them on row 5 or overcommit to row 1. Okay, so we have a choice now between taking a red from our opponent or grabbing this black for ourselves. I think I'm going to prioritize the blacks. I still need my row 1, I still need my row 2, and I need to finish this out. So let's take the black. And okay, so some math here. This row 3 yellow is worth 3 points to us now, -1. So 2 points. In the future, it will probably contribute an additional point to the placement of this red and an additional point to the placement of this black. So maybe it's 5 points in total. But it's going to be 2, 4, 6, -9 for my opponent. So let's forego the yellow and we'll take the red instead and dump them with a -11 round in total. So maybe my opponent didn't see that. And basically what they could have done is taken the red, and then I would have to take the whites as negatives, and they would take the yellows for their top row, and they'd still get a bunch of negatives, but they would have an additional red, and I would have taken some more negatives as well. Okay, so this is a pretty easy first choice, I think. We just want to take these reds for our adjacency and for preventing our opponent's column. We've got ample opportunity to collect our black here. And we will be able to do it with the first player token. And I've talked about it in other episodes, but when you have a lead like this, 23-5, the main thing to avoid is just taking big negatives, but you should just focus on getting your points on the board, and then manipulating the remaining tiles so as to not get yourself in a tough situation. Okay, so if we take a blue and our opponent takes a blue, there will be 4 colors in the middle, which is good for us. Alternatively, if we just take a red, and then they take a blue, we can make it so there are 5 colors in the middle, which is good for us. And then they don't also get 2 red or 4 white. So my opponent can get 4 white this round, which is pretty nice. And I want to prevent that. So I think the best way to do it is to just take whites. And I will play these on row 5. None of my other rows will be blocked. I'm not planning on playing anything on this row 3. So I'm okay with the risk of having this open row. I'm sorry, this incomplete row in the next round. Okay, so let's take this red away. Yep, and then we grab the whites. And I don't want to take these 2 blacks for row 3, even though it looks tempting, because there's only 3. Oh no, there's 4 blacks left. Okay, so that actually changes things a bit. I think I still don't want to do it because my opponent needs 2 black. So I would be banking on getting 3 of the 4 when my opponent needs 2. So we'll just take the yellow. We can consider playing the yellow, actually. There's 5 of them. They're good for our row 3. The only consideration would be we can play red on row 4. So yeah, let's play this yellow. So I will need to be careful in this next round. My lead is still big, 15 points, but I left a couple open rows, so I do need to be mindful of potentially taking negatives. The good news is that my row 4 has room for blue and yellow, which are the most common tiles. So yeah, it's not looking too threatening. So I'm just going to start with 1 white, end the game. we don't need to be all that concerned about our opponent outscoring us. Like, we're happy to let them complete this column. Let's grab the 2 blacks. So I could have defended this red by putting red on row 4, but then I opened myself up to these blues or yellows coming back to bite me. And because I have a 15-point lead, there's really just no way for my opponent to catch up here. So we'll just take this black. Okay, so this is another situation where maybe your instinct tells you to take white, but the white is worth 1 point. -2 is -1, and our opponent goes -1, so net gain 0. But if we play the red, we get 0, our opponent gets -3, net gain -3. So make sure you're double checking these situations where you could play tiles, but they might not be really worth anything. And it's better to just have your opponent go negative. Okay, let me check the length of the recording. So we're at 56 minutes. Yeah, let's just do one more. We're climbing. We're so close to expert, it's hard to stop. Okay. Okay, so we see, as has been the trend the past 2 nights, building on the side. So let's try to get ahead of these yellows. So we know when our opponent builds on the side that yellow is a big problem. So let's try to get ahead of it. Let's play on row 3. Okay, and so we're probably going to end up not building much of a bottom row here. We'll just take this yellow to complete it. So if I were my opponent there, I would have snatched up these 2 yellows. Like, they're going to be in really big yellow trouble. I'm just going to focus on grabbing these yellows, and I'm not thinking too much about my bottom rows yet. But now I will, and we have a nice thing going for us with the 4th column, which is that because there weren't a lot of whites in this round, in theory there should be a lot in the next round, and we have the first player token, and our opponent does not need whites for their build. So we will be more than, like, we should have our opportunity to take a bunch of whites. There was a play there that happened while I was talking, which was that I took 1 white for my bottom row instead of red or black for the top row. And that is to, I don't really care which top row I get, so I just want to contribute to this bottom row. And of course, there aren't a lot of whites in this round, so joke's on us. But we do get the opportunity to take yellows from our opponent, and I'm actually just going to take the 2. So this is like hyper defensive, but they could use it for row 2. Obviously, they could use it for row 4. So playing a very aggressive defense on yellow. And I'm seeing some other plays here. Does this work? So what I'm looking at is taking 2 blue. And when my opponent takes 2 blue for their row 5, I should be able to group these 4 blacks together. And basically really hurt my opponent's adjacency. So when I play these whites, though, I don't want to play them. I could play them on row 5 and assume that I'll get the 3 red for my row 2. But I'm a little nervous that if I play them on row 5, my opponent could take the 3 red and then I'm left without a row 2. I mean, I could take the 4 black. So that's actually not bad. So let's go for that. I think it's unlikely my opponent defends these 3 reds. Just to, isn't very natural. I don't know that I would advocate for it in their position. Okay, so that's I think I still would have picked row 2 versus row 3. You go an extra -2, but you instantly get 4 points, if not 5. And this is going to contribute to future adjacency points, whereas this row 3 black is not going to contribute to much. Okay, so we're going to secure our row 2. And we'll grab the white. And I think we can take this blue. So we want to build row 3 blue. Why not grab it? Wow, everything we take ends up low. So those blues might be hard to get in this round. Oh, I realized I think last round I mixed up my red and yellow tile counts. I think I thought there were 9 yellow left, but there's actually 11. Okay, what do we want to do here? Let's put some pressure on our opponent to deal with this blue. See if they'll decide to take it from us. Nope. Okay, so we're happy to just pick this up. Other things we're looking at this round, we want probably the row 2 black. And of course the row 5 white, both of which should be relatively straightforward to get. And, if we don't end up with row 5 white, it is not awful. I'd be more concerned if I only had, 1 white or 2 whites, but because I have 4, I know I'm going to be able to pick that up in the future. Okay. I think that just leads to letting my opponent get 5 red, so we don't necessarily want to do that. Let's start here. Okay. So my opponent goes for the row 5 red. And there's 4 reds left. So even if they complete it, I only need to take 1 for the remainder of the game to stop them from full color. So I'm not super worried about this. So I'll just complete my white, and then I assume they're going to do this. Yep. And we'll just grab the 1 to defend it now. And so we have a decision here. We can try to play this white. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if we take this white of 13 remaining. So I think that's pretty good odds for us. So let's take that white. One black left. Wow. Just an insane number of whites. Okay, so this is a situation where, maybe your gut instinct is to take this red, and it's not a bad gut instinct. And because there's so many whites left, if my opponent were to get that red and the 4 black, maybe they could build out a second column here. The thing I don't like about taking the red is that it puts the 2 yellow right in the center for my opponent to take. But I think, they can just they could try to build it anyway. Okay, let's put some pressure on with these whites, and we're giving them 2 options that aren't really great for the first player token. And now that they've done this and put these blacks in, let's actually go for threatening this second column. Okay, and so I'm going to take these 3 blue for my row 2, and I'm going to take the 3 instead of the 2, because if I take the 2, then I put the blacks in the middle, and they could group all 4 blacks together. So doing this allows me to remain super flexible. So I'll grab the black. I expect my opponent to go for 1 blue. Do I want to grab this black? Maybe I'm willing to overpay for the black. And I just grab the blue. Does grabbing the white make any sense? I don't think so. Okay, I'm gonna take the black. And if they take the white for defending, we get to prevent them from getting row 1. So we're gonna pay some negatives here, but let's see what we want. There's so many white in the next round. There's only 2 blue. But we have first player, so we'll be able to get blue. Okay, so let's take the white. Not going to play this. There's 3 reds left, and our opponent's going to not be able to play them, so we can get row 3 red. We might be able to get row 3 yellow. I'm sorry, white. So I'm not going to play those 2 blacks. They're going to score very few points. Okay, so we're up by 6. There's a million whites. There's only 2 blue. So what do we want to start with? Let's actually start with the only 2 white, so that we can comfortably end the game. So I see what my opponent's trying to do here, but this is like somewhat of a pointless effort, because I'm just going to take a blue. So these whites are going to score them 2 points if they finish them. Okay, so they want top row yellow, so let's pick the white that combines those 4 yellows. Our opponent taking a think here. Ultimately, they have no outs. Taking the red's not bad. Prevents me from row 3 red. So what do we want to do? We could calculate this yellow, so it's worth 7 to them, including the row bonus, and they go -6, so net gain of 1. So I guess we can take it. They can only play white. We take a white, they take a black, we take 2 reds, or we take 2 reds. Yeah, it doesn't matter really. It does matter actually. The white is better. They could have got away with no negatives. Now they get away with 1 negative. Okay, another game in the books. Was a pretty interesting one with the tile draws. Not a lot of whites came, even though we expected them to, so we had to hold off. But we basically made good use of the tiles that were out there, and this was another example of when our opponent builds the rightmost column. We didn't really have a chance to defend red, but we hammered our yellow defense. So I know, like, it's not super common for me to like take tiles my opponent needs and play them suboptimally, but in this game, like, I took 2 yellow for my row 1, even though I had the option to take just 1 yellow. And it's just because I knew that my opponent wants to do all of this, and that building to the left is really tough. So there are situations where I advocate for kind of hyper aggressive play or hyper aggressive defense, and we saw that in some of the games today where our opponent chose to build on the right side of the board. So I hope that these past 4 videos, I guess, have really shown the limitations of building this rightmost column specifically. It can just be so hard to build that tile and efficiently build your top rows. It is much easier to defend this than building the leftmost column, which I also don't advocate for, but it's at least a little better than the rightmost column. So yeah, good set of games tonight. I think this was another 8 wins. So we are on a pretty good streak here. Those 2 games in episode 4, the 2 losses in a row are so far our only losses. So I have improved at my ability to play and talk at the same time since then. We're coming up on expert, which I'm sure is a rating range a lot of you are waiting for. So excited about that. And please do feel free to comment on, whether these videos are helping, or if you think, maybe a more guide-like structure would help. Obviously, I originally intended to write a guide, and then I thought about a video guide, but there's just so many situations, and kind of hard to curate a video without tons and tons and tons of replays. That being said, I do recognize that it's not always easy to just take someone's thought process and apply it to your own game. Um, I watch videos from chess grandmasters, and I'm not suddenly a chess grandmaster just because I listen to their thought process. So, um, if there is, a better way to convey information, please let me know. I'm happy to do different types of videos. I think this is hopefully a fun and interesting series, and what I'm really trying to show is that most of the time um, we are making relatively logical, straightforward plays that don't require some insane level of calculation or looking ahead. Obviously, we look ahead a couple turns, maybe two or three. I hope that's been, easy enough to follow, but I'm not playing out the whole round in my head from the first turn. You probably noticed I do very little math. I've seen, like, let's go to the forums real quick. If you look at some of these, like, weekly puzzles, maybe, this is a bad example, but some of these weekly puzzles have examples where people are really heavily calculating how the points are going to work out, which is sometimes warranted, but let's see. Yeah, tough to find a good one. If it's a round 5 puzzle, then it makes sense to do all the math. But, like, in round 2 and 3, or 2, 3, and 4, we're pretty rarely doing any math. So, yeah, just hoping to show that, like, you can win at Azul at a pretty high level, without having to do all this calculation and all this looking ahead. For the most part, we make plays that improve our board. We try to stay flexible, which I think is important. We don't overcommit to, like, a dubious play early in the round. It's very rare that we're, like, taking tiles for our row 4 early in the round, unless it's round 1, of course, where we might get stuck later on in the round. So oftentimes we're kind of filling out our top rows and filling in any bottom rows that need to be completed, and then we're staying flexible on row 3 or row 4 while trying to prevent our opponent from being able to complete what they want to complete, or making them pay to do so. And I think that flexibility is pretty critical, and part of why we pretty rarely end up building second columns or going for full color. Those things tend to require a lot of commitment at the start of the round. You start building a new row 5 or something, and that can get you in trouble, as we saw with our first 2 games today, where our opponent was going for things like that. And even in a game when we didn't notice that they got full color, we still won because we built more efficiently than them. So, yeah, thanks for watching. We will be hopefully at expert in the next video, and we will see you next time.